Holland brought that before the Rules Committee last night. The Rules Committee Republicans, every single one of them voted no. Mr. Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
I think I'll let this thing cool down a little bit, but the gentleman on the other side of this debate is quite wrong. There's no balance in this particular bill at all. There is no balance. The cuts are devastating. Meals on Wheels for seniors, Medicare programs, Medicaid programs for seniors. And if you take a look at the rest of the issues, school lunch programs, kids are going to go hungry. There's no balance. There is no tax proposal in this. There's no balance at all. But the reason I raised today is to add one more problem that's not being solved by this reconciliation. The National Flood Insurance Bill was folded into this reconciliation, and it has a gaping hole. As the Corps of Engineers has gone through the nation's levees and downgraded those levees, creating an enormous problem for agriculture throughout this nation, and certainly in California, where many of the levees have been downgraded, it's now impossible for farmers and the agricultural community to obtain loans to continue to produce and to enhance their agricultural production. This amendment, which I'd hoped could be put into the bill but was not allowed by the Rules Committee, would simply require an immediate study by the Department of Agriculture and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to undertake a study on the impact of the downgrading of the levees and the resultant inability to get national flood insurance and the impact that that has on the agricultural communities, keeping in mind that agriculture in a flood zone is one of the very best ways to reduce the risk. I would hope that the majority would consider, as this thing moves along, to fold into the National Flood Insurance Program an opportunity for the farm flood program that I've introduced, which would allow farmers to obtain national flood insurance and then the lending that the banks could make available so they can continue to build the necessary facilities for their agricultural production. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman from California yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, there are no tough choices here. I talked to the gentleman whose seat I took the other day. I said, John, you know, when you were up here as a congressman, you made it look fun. Folks were always saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for all the spending that was going on here. I said, I don't get to make any fun decisions. When you've increased the public debt in this country by 50% over the last 4 years, you're all out of giveaway decisions. All we have now are tough decisions. That's all we have. And again, I know that my friend from Massachusetts speaks with passion and conviction. His advocacy for the neediest among us is an inspiration on the floor and in committee and on and on. I don't fault him for that a bit, but I would say to my friend, had we not given that payroll tax cut to members of Congress, we could have provided that food stamp increase that you discussed earlier to an additional 2 million individuals in this country. An additional 2 million individuals in this country had we foregone that tax increase right here. But we didn't. We chose just to go along with the program and cut away, spend away. We can't do that. We've got to stop that. And I would say to my friend, because it's hard. I have the same family struggling in my district that you do. In fact, our foreclosure rate in my district is higher than it is in your district. Our number of folks who are going homeless in Georgia as a result of foreclosures higher than it is in Massachusetts. But when you talk about the additional 1.8 million folks, 1.8 million folks, Mr. Speaker, according to the CBO, are going to lose their food stamp benefits under this bill. There's no question about that. But here's the thing, Mr. Speaker, and this is important. This bill doesn't cut anybody from food stamps. This bill says the only people who can get food stamps are people who apply and qualify for food stamps. Hear that, Mr. Speaker. The CBO tells us, and my friend from Massachusetts quotes, that 1.8 million people are going to lose food stamp benefits. But the only change this bill makes is that you actually have to apply for the benefits to get the benefits. So that means 1.8 million people in this country are receiving food stamp benefits who would not qualify for food stamp benefits if they had to go and apply. Mr. Speaker, that is not mean-spirited. If you want to change the food stamp rules, If you want to make it a laxer process, whatever you want to do, let's do that. But let's not demonize each other. Let's not say we're trying to throw poor children out in the streets when all we're saying is we have a successful food stamp program, and why don't we just limit it to those people who qualify for it?
Would the gentleman yield?
I'd be happy to yield, my friend from California.
I thank you for the courtesy of the yielding. The fact of the matter is that 1.8 million people will not be able to get the supplemental food that they get from the food stamps. They're going to be hungry. That's a fact. Now, the rest of the fact is the application process has been supported by the federal government and by the legislation so that the states can reach out to those people that are hungry and that are able to qualify for food stamps. That's gone in this bill. So the ability to reach out and to bring into those programs. And beyond that, it is a fact.
My time from my friend, I would say reaching out and bringing folks into the program who do not qualify for the program. The rules for the program are clear, Mr. Speaker. If you qualify for food stamps, I'm the first one who wants you to have them. If you qualify for the SNAP program, under SNAP program rules, you should get food stamps. I'd be happy to yield, my friend.
Just so the gentleman understands, the General Accountability Office says the error rate in in the SNAP program is less than 3%. What is he talking about when people are getting benefits that they don't deserve? I'd like to know the numbers of that. How much?
This is important, Mr. Speaker, and I hope folks are paying attention back in their offices. The gentleman is talking about the error rate. The error rate. Folks who have mistakenly gotten food stamps because in the application process they got the application process wrong. They shouldn't have qualified, but they're giving them away anyway. What the CBO says is something entirely different. What the CBO says is that 1.8 million American families, if they walked into the office today and applied for food stamps today, would not qualify for food stamps. It's not an error. It's not a mistake. It's that the rules of the game have been changed to say we just want everybody. We just want everybody to have a part in the program. When the gentleman says it's a paperwork nightmare for states, I happen to agree with the gentleman. There's a tremendous paperwork challenge for states, but this does not solve that. All we're saying is go through the application process. To suggest that we're trying to take benefits away from people who need those benefits is disingenuous.
The gentleman yields?
I'd be happy to let the gentleman have his own time, Mr. Speaker, because I'm prepared to yield. I'm prepared to reserve.
Gentleman from Georgia reserves. Just by way of time update, the gentleman from Georgia has 6 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Massachusetts has 6.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
A half a minute, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized.
The gentleman is wrong. He's just wrong when he talks about the abuse of the SNAP program, that people are somehow getting benefits that they're not entitled to, and the demagoguery that's going on with regard to categorical eligibility is just inexcusable. That actually cuts paperwork and bureaucracy at a state level, and it helps people who are eligible get the benefits. I'd also, no, I'm not going to yield
the gentleman will not yield?
I'd also say the gentleman, he gets up on the floor and talks about this payroll tax cut for members of Congress. That was a payroll tax cut for everybody. Now, if he wanted to exempt members of Congress, that would be minuscule. That would do nothing to provide any benefit to anyone. I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would say to my friend, I wish he would show me the code sections here that go into the SNAP program and say under the SNAP program, the income criteria that we had yesterday, that's changing, and so folks aren't going to get those benefits tomorrow. That's not here. All this bill does is to say you need to apply and you need to earn those benefits on your own merits. When the gentleman talks about paperwork, he knows good and well the CBO took that into consideration. When the CBO says 1.8 million families are no longer going to qualify, it means some of folks are going to get thrown off of categorical eligibility because that is the gaming of the system, and they're going to go back in, they're going to apply for benefits, and they're going to get them. But 1.8 million are going to go back in and apply and get denied because they don't qualify for benefits. Mr. Speaker, if we need to change the eligibility criteria, if we have folks in need who can't qualify, let's change the eligibility criteria. But in the name of good government, when we're going into programs and saying we have rules of the game, we just want people to have to follow them, to somehow define that as being mean-spirited, it galls me. With that, I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Georgia reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, let me give myself a minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
What galls me is that the Republican majority is balancing the budget on the backs of the most vulnerable in this country, the poorest of the poor. The gentleman talks about CBO. CBO says that cutting $36 billion from the SNAP program means that more than 22 million households will see a cut in their benefit. It means that 22 million families will have less food tomorrow than they do today. And in fact, 2 million people would be cut from SNAP altogether. That's not me making up numbers. That's CBO. That's where I get this from. And I think that's cruel and inhumane during one of the most worst economic crises that we've faced. And yes, we have to balance the budget, and we have to make tough choices. But why does it always have to be on the backs of the most vulnerable? Why can't Donald Trump pay a couple of more dollars in taxes? Why can't we end the subsidies to big oil? Why can't we make it so that Warren Buffett pays the same tax rate as the Secretary? That's all we're saying here. Your reconciliation bill represents your priorities. And what we're arguing is that your priorities are wrong and bad for the country. We have an alternative. You won't even let us have that opportunity to debate that alternative on the floor.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would say to my friend from Massachusetts that I'm prepared to close. If he has any more speakers,
I'm it.
Then I would yield to my, or I would reserve and enjoy my
Gentleman
friend.
from Georgia reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to urge my colleagues to defeat the previous question. If we defeat the previous question, I will offer an amendment to this close rule to let the House work its will and give Mr. Van Hollen substitute an up or down vote in the House. It deserves more than a procedural vote. And I ask unanimous consent, Mr. Speaker, to insert the text of the amendment in the record along with extraneous materials immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I think what we're talking about here today are two different visions for this country. The Republicans have their vision that is outlined in their reconciliation package. Mr. Van Hollen, I think, has adequately summarized what the Democratic priorities are. The main difference is that in their proposal there is no balance. It's a meat-axe approach to everything. Cut, 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 regardless of what it means to the people of this country. What we're trying to do, and quite frankly what other bipartisan commissions have recommended, is a more balanced approach. We cut spending, but there's also some revenues to be raised. At a time in our country where we have a tax code that allows Warren Buffett to pay a lower tax rate than his secretary, it seems that we can have, it's time for a little fairness. And that's all we're asking for here. That's all we're asking for, is a balanced, fair approach. We're prepared to make the tough choices, and yes, some of those tough choices mean cuts. But I'd say to my Republicans, some of those tough choices may mean that you'll have to go back on the pledge that you signed with Grover Norquist, that you'll have to support closing tax loopholes and raising taxes on the wealthiest individuals in this country. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask unanimous consent at this time to insert in the record a letter from the U.S. Conference on Catholic Bishops. And I want to read one paragraph from that letter to members of Congress. And we begin, and I quote, "The Catholic bishops of the United States recognize the serious deficits our country faces, and we acknowledge that Congress must make difficult decisions about how to allocate burdens and sacrifices and balance resources and needs. However, deficit reduction and fiscal responsibility efforts must protect and not undermine the needs of the poor and the vulnerable people. The proposed cuts to programs in the budget reconciliation fail this basic moral test. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states it is the proper role of government to make accessible to each what is needed to lead a truly human life: food, clothing, health, work, education and culture, suitable information, the right to establish a family, and so on. Poor and vulnerable people do not have a powerful lobbyist to advocate their interests, but they have the most compelling needs." End quote. Mr. Speaker, that paragraph sums up what I feel and what so many of us feel about what my friends on the other side of the aisle are doing. You know, yes, we have to make tough choices, but why are always the tough choices on the backs of middle-income families and on the backs of the poor? There are people in this country who are hungry. We're the richest country on the planet, and we have hungry people here. And what is our response? Not to figure out a way to help deal with this terrible scourge, but our response, their response, is to take a meat-axe approach to SNAP, which will cut benefits. That's what CBO says. It will cut benefits. People will have less food tomorrow than they have today if this were to become law. I think that's a horrible choice. That's not a choice we should be discussing on the floor. Yes, let's make these programs more efficient. But I'm going to tell you, the SNAP program is a hell of a lot more efficient than the Pentagon. I mean, the waste, the fraud, and the abuse in the Pentagon, the wasteful weapon systems in the Pentagon, you know. And I will tell you, I don't care what Leon Panetta says. There's savings to be found in the Pentagon budget. And we ought to go after that. And we ought to make sure that Donald Trump pays his fair share in taxes. And we ought to close these corporate tax loopholes that allow corporations to get away with paying no taxes. Middle-income families can't do that. I mean, this is about fairness. That's what we're looking for, fairness and balance. This is a tough time, but, you know, rather than following the European model, which my friends seem to love, of austerity and cut, which is not very popular, as they're seeing, what we're trying to do here is, you know, make responsible cutbacks and responsible investments, investing in a robust highway bill to put people back to work, investing in education, make sure our young people are prepared to compete in the 21st century economy, and yes, investing in a social safety net, investing in programs that provide a circle of protection to the poor and the most vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with that. We should be proud of the fact that we're a country that cares. You know, let's not give that up. That's a strength. It's not a weakness. It's a strength. And I said to my colleagues, my biggest problem with what the Republicans are doing is it fails that test. What it does is it goes after the most vulnerable in a way that I think is cruel and wrong. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote no and defeat the previous question. I urge a no vote on the rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my friend from Massachusetts for joining me on the floor today, and I'd say I think he chose exactly the right choice of words when he was trying to make his points. Describe your opposition as hating women and children, and that's your best chance of winning your argument, if only it were true. And that's what I hope American people take home from debates like these, Mr. Speaker, is that there are serious challenges here, and there are serious people who are here trying to solve these challenges. But we get wrapped around the axle in the name-calling here that I would argue does nothing to feed a child, does nothing to take care of a family. The gentleman says that we're the richest nation in the world. I would tell the gentleman there's no poor nation on the planet. There is not a nation on the planet that has borrowed more money than this nation has. Not one. Not one. What do they say about socialism, Mr. Speaker? It's a great plan until you run out of other people's money. Guess what? We've run out of other people's money. I just want to show you a chart, Mr. Speaker. This is a chart, and I'll show it around so other members can see it. The green line represents tax revenues in this country. It goes back to 1947, and what you'll see is tax revenues are fairly flat as a percent of the economy. In fact, because this chart goes all the way back to 1947, it reflects the New Deal with FDR, reflects all of that growth in government. The red line is the spending, government spending. It goes all the way back through 1965. It reflects Lyndon Johnson and all the Great Society spending that goes on. And what you'll see, and I just want to make sure all my colleagues can see it there, the red line representing where spending is going in this nation, the green line representing where taxes are historically in this nation. Mr. Speaker, does this look like we have a tax problem here? Does it look like we have a spending problem in this nation? Taxes have remained the same as a percent of GDP as have spending until now. Until now, we have a spending-driven crisis in this nation. I'd say to my friend, again, he chose all the right talking points. They want to protect the rich. They want to protect the oil companies. I will tell you there is one bill, Mr. Speaker, and you know it well. There is one bill in this Congress that eliminates every single corporate loophole, exemption, deduction, and break. There's one. That same bill, Mr. Speaker, eliminates every loophole the wealthy use to avoid paying their fair share. Every one. Mr. Speaker, it is the single most popularly co-sponsored tax bill, fundamental reform bill in the House and in the Senate. It has almost 70 members in the House, it has 9 members in the Senate, and there is one Democrat on it. One. Mr. Speaker, given the right speech down here about what folks ought to do, doesn't move us in the right direction. Putting your name behind some legislation and moving something forward gets us in the right direction. This Budget Committee chairman sitting here beside me, I'm so proud of him. Chairman Paul Ryan, that's a name known around this country as a man who is trying. There are a lot of folks here known for blaming. There aren't many folks who are known for trying. who say, I don't care about the slings and the arrows. America is facing crisis, and if not me, then who? We got that in the House-passed budget, Mr. Speaker. Folks who said, if not me, then who, and they made tough choices. Here we have the first reconciliation bill. First reconciliation bill. My colleagues on the other side are going to offer a motion to recommit to this deficit reduction bill that actually increases spending and call that balance. Mr. Speaker, food stamp program spending has increased 270% over the last decade. The mean-spirited folks that my colleagues talk about want to increase it by 260% instead. These aren't easy decisions, Mr. Speaker, but they're not going to put one family that qualifies for food stamps out. Not one. Not one. We're going to move beyond the demagoguery, Mr. Speaker. We're going to move into the real business that governing this nation takes. I hope we'll get a strong bipartisan vote on this rule. I hope we'll get a strong bipartisan vote on the underlying bill. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of both the rule and the underlying bill. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time and I move the previous question.
The gentleman from Georgia yields back, all time having expired. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. No. Chair rules the ayes have it.
Speaker,
Gentleman from
that
Massachusetts.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the Chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of adoption. This will be a 15-minute vote.
The House today beginning its day with a bill to replace what's called the budget sequester. The bill replaces $98 billion in cuts from defense and social programs with different cuts. The sequester, part of the deal made last year to cut $1.2 trillion from to offset the debt ceiling increase. When the super committee last year failed to reach agreement on cuts, the sequester went into effect. It automatically cuts $98 billion from defense and social programs unless Congress passes other cuts. 6 House committees came up with alternative cuts, and the House will vote on them today. 2 votes here. This is the previous question, and the vote on the rule is next. His first vote is 15 minutes, and the rule vote will be 5 minutes. Speaker Boehner tweeted out a short while ago about this Republican bill, saying it reduces the deficit by another $242.8 billion while protecting troops from arbitrary cuts. This previous question is an opportunity for Democrats to change the rule. This will allow the Mr. McGovern of Massachusetts to allow the rule, offer an amendment to the rule which allow the body to consider the Democratic alternative to the Republican bill. Chris Van Hollen of Maryland told the Washington Post about the Republican bill that he was surprised how twisted and lopsided the priorities are in the bill, but the Democratic alternative, according to the Post, would replace those across-the-board cuts with a $116 billion package containing nearly $31.5 billion in spending cuts and $85 billion in new revenues. So this is the first vote, 15 minutes on the previous question, and the rule vote is next. We started this morning today on Washington Journal talking to a Budget Committee member about today's debate.
And now joining us on the Washington Journal is Representative Gwen Moore, a Democrat from Wisconsin, currently in her 4th term. She's a member of the Budget Committee. Congresswoman, thank you for being on the Washington Journal.
Thank you so much for having me.
If we could start, the conversation we've been having a lot this morning is about what the President said about gay marriage yesterday to Robin Roberts. If we could get your comments on that.
You know, I can really appreciate his sort of confession that this has been an evolution over time, because I think he is speaking not only for himself, but for many Americans. I think I'm 61 years old, and I can remember a time in my life when I thought that perhaps the homosexuals were not within the range of normal people, and I came to learn that they're regular, normal people, and that this is like being left-handed. 10% of the population are homosexuals, and I came to understand that these were our neighbors, our friends, our relatives, and you know, this was something that evolved over time, and that bigotry sort of falls away when you actually encounter people in your family and your work environment.
Is it an issue, gay marriage, that issue? Is that an issue in the 4th District of Wisconsin?
Well, we have gay people in the 4th Congressional District for sure. And, you know, I have, as long as I've been elected, always affirmed the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, the rights of everyone to experience equality. That seemed so clear to me as an elected official, that no matter what my personal beliefs were, no matter where I was on that evolutionary rung, that the 14th Amendment guaranteed equal protection to everyone.
Well, we invited you on specifically to talk about what the House is going to be working on today, and this new budget reconciliation bill, or what exactly is the House going to be voting and debating on today?
Well, the House is going to be voting on a bill that's sort of being combined, and it really has two major components. The first component is really to tear down the sort of firewall that the Budget Control Act created, so that there would be a sequester requiring equal cuts between defense spending and non-defense spending. So one element of that bill sort of tears that wall down and disproportionately places most of the cuts on social services programs, food stamps, eliminates the social services block grant, which assists elderly, and really increases defense spending immediately and over time up to $60 billion more. So that's one thing that it does. The second thing that it does is it takes recommendations from 6 different committees. So the target of finding, you know, $100 billion in cuts has now gone over $300 billion in cuts. And so the Agricultural Committee, for example, was tasked with finding $30 billion in cuts. So instead of cutting, say, farm subsidies that go to wealthy corporate farms, not one penny was cut from those kind of corporate farmers, but instead all those cuts were taken from food stamps.
So does this, if this bill passes, and it's predicted to because it's
Absolutely.
a Republican-sponsored bill, does it negate the bill that passed last year, the sequestration bill that passed last year?
Well, that's the purpose of it. Now, the thing is that it won't, I don't think it'll fly in the Senate. The second portion of the bill is called a reconciliation bill. But the whole notion of a reconciliation is that you have to agree. And so a reconciliation bill would avoid the sort of filibuster rules. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with folk, but they won't be able to avoid a filibuster in the Senate because the Senate has not agreed on this package. And so I think that it's a real political document. But I do think that it really elucidates the differences in Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans here, again, are preserving and protecting defense spending, preserving and protecting tax breaks and tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans, and they are putting things like food stamps, Medicaid for nursing homes, Meals on Wheels for the elderly, that these are where they're taking their cuts. And I think they're making it, you know, eminently clear to the American public where their priorities lie.
Gwen Moore is our guest, a graduate of Marquette University. She is in her 4th term representing the 4th District of Wisconsin, and she is a member of the Budget Committee. First call up for her comes from Tallahassee, Florida. Dimitri on our independent line. Good morning, Dimitri.
Hey, Ms. Moore, how you doing?
How you doing, Dimitri?
I'm doing okay. I just wanted to say, thank you for the job that you do, ma'am. But Congress, I know it's very trying right now. And I just wanted to see, did you have an opinion on what the president did? Of course, I agree with him 100%, because it's not about whether they should get mad. It's about civil rights. And I cannot vote against people's rights, ma'am. And thank you, and about this Trojan horse, this so-called bill, where the jobs bills at? That's what we want to talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dimitri, on your last point. Where are the jobs? Absolutely, this bill focuses on slashing and burning benefits, and there are no job opportunities. As a matter of fact, it cuts job opportunities for folk like postal workers, for example. And to your point about civil rights, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that even though there are lots of risks for the president in stating his belief in the Constitution, in the 14th Amendment, that everyone has equal protection under the law, even though that's some political risk to him, I think it shows leadership that he has taken that risk and said, we just have to stand up for what's right and what is constitutional.
Representative Moore, have the Democrats crafted a budget bill this year?
Oh, absolutely. We put a budget bill on the floor, which had a more balanced approach to meeting the budget goals. It raised revenues. Not one penny in the Republicans' bill asks anything of people who are better able to contribute to our economy. So we had a more balanced approach of making sacrifices, making cuts, in programs that are sacred cows to Democrats, but at the same time realizing that people who make over $1 million a year could pay more, and many have stated that they were willing to make those sacrifices for our beloved country.
Next call for Representative Gwen Moore comes from San Diego. Steve on our Republican line. You're on the Washington Journal.
Hi, Ms. Moore.
Hi, Steve.
I had a question regarding agricultural subsidies. I'd like to know what the theory is behind paying farmers or giving them subsidies not to grow crops, in your opinion. And I'll listen off the line. Thank you.
Well, Steve, that is the question. And I think that it came from days gone by when there were surpluses, but with the growth of these corporate farmers, they're no longer necessary. And I noticed that you called on the Republican line. So there are many people in the Republican Party who, as well as Democrats, who agree that it's time to look at these huge farm subsidies and to move in a different direction. The fact that the Agriculture Committee didn't put any of these cuts on the table, I think is very telling with regard to people's priorities. I mean, many of these so-called farmers, again, are New York lawyers who don't grow a single thing.
Gwen Moore, where would you support cuts in the federal budget?
Well, certainly there have already been cuts made. There have been slashes to programs. Federal employees have taken a pay cut. We have seen all kind of cuts that have already been made. So it's not theoretical about where cuts could be made.
But what would you support?
Well, I think that there are many tax expenditures, many tax loopholes that could be closed. Like the caller Steve just pointed out, it's not only farm subsidies, but we're still subsidizing fossil fuels. We're subsidizing oil companies. Why? They're making tremendous profits. I would also do other things in the area of health care, support the Affordable Care Act's goal of reducing the costs of health care. There's absolutely no reason, for example, that we can't negotiate drug prices with drug companies and bring some of those benefits back home. This repatriation of monies from that are taken offshore overseas. I mean, I think that that would generate billions of dollars. And certainly, I think that the military has indicated that there's a lot of waste in the military. And as we wind down these wars, there are truly opportunities to realize a peace dividend. And so I think there are lots of opportunities to do it without gouging our safety net programs, without destroying Medicaid. Medicaid, you know, I hear my colleagues say that we don't want to turn our safety net into a hammock. And it's hard to visualize an 86-year-old woman who's in a nursing home using Medicaid as lying in a hammock. Here's someone who is trying to live out her last days with some dignity, and we vilified her and made her some lazy bum that is taking advantage of the public good. And so I think that there are many, many opportunities to do shared sacrifice. Also, I have a very unpopular belief that we ought to just get rid of all of the Bush-era tax cuts, not just for people over $250,000, not just for millionaires, but for everyone. As you look at the distribution of benefits, those people who are middle class or lower income don't realize much benefit at all. And yet, and we'd realize $4 trillion immediately that would come back into our revenue stream, into the Treasury. So I'm for getting rid of the George W. Bush cuts and reforming our tax code and making it more progressive.
Well, your fellow Wisconsinite is the chairman of the House Budget Committee. What's your relationship with Paul Ryan?
Paul Ryan is an absolutely amazing, decent person. And I think that his heart is in the right way, but I'll tell you, you know, I think that it would be much easier to talk to him about reforming mandatory spending programs if we could move him off this notion that you can do it somehow without raising revenues. I mean, I think that that dog don't hunt. The numbers just don't add up to say that, you know, you can just cut, you know, with women, infant, and children's program, cut food stamps, cut the social services block grant, eliminate Wheels on Meals for elderly program, eliminate programs for abused children, cut Medicaid, turn Medicare into a voucher program that's going to, you know, require seniors to pay, on average, in current dollars, $6,000 a year more for their premiums, and somehow you're going to get to that balance that you can continue over, you know, $60-something billion over the course of the next decade, increasing military funding, taking not one hair off of military spending, and somehow, you know, you're going to give. I think that he means well, but the arithmetic just does not add up.
Well, according to the Bipartisan Policy Center, currently, under current law, these areas are exempt from sequestration, Social Security, veterans benefits, Medicaid, CHIP, unemployment insurance, temporary assistance for needy families, food stamps, other low-income programs, and cut to Medicare is capped at 2%.
That's the current sequestration bill. What the bill does that we're going to the floor with today is tears down that firewall. It tears down that firewall. And so all bets are off in terms of protecting these programs.
Part of your story, Representative Moore, when you first came to Congress, was you were on welfare, when you were a single mother, when you first came, or when you first started school. As someone who's experienced that firsthand, what reforms would you suggest making to the welfare program? Oh,
I absolutely have a bill to do that. You know, for one thing, I hope it would be wonderful to get some partners among those Democrats and Republicans who supported welfare reform for the welfare reform program to live up to its rhetoric, to help people escape from poverty. And so I do have a bill, reauthorization to ensure, you know, rising out of poverty, so that we provide education and training for those people who are capable of moving forward. One of the things that I hated so much about the bill that we have is that there were real strict prohibitions against women getting substantial education and training, thus turning women into sort of a permanent underclass. Every politician says that there's a need to have an education and training in our current global economy, and yet the bill doesn't provide a way forward for women. So certainly education and training. For those folk who have other sort of problems, substance abuse, mental health problems, to really have a program that identifies those incapacities and addresses them, even if it's things like parenting skills, to help those parents move forward. Certainly a welfare reform bill would provide folk with those work supports that they need, guaranteed child care right now, and give them some assistance beyond getting that first job, so that as soon as you get that first job, you're not forced off of some marginal tax rate, some sort of cliff, where as soon as you get your first job, making a little bit above minimum wage, you suddenly are not eligible for Medicaid, not eligible for food stamps, not eligible for child care. It's like taking one step forward and 3 steps backwards. So certainly we ought to live up to the rhetoric of helping people escape poverty.
Back to your phone calls for Representative Gwen Moore, Lorman, Mississippi. Emmanuel on our Democrats line.
Good morning.
Hi, Emmanuel.
You may have just spoken to one issue, but all of us, I think, logically would... Hello?
We're listening, sir.
Oh, yeah. All of us logically would like to reduce the deficit, but why does no one speak to the issue that if we eliminated, quote, all of the popular social programs that we speak of, the deficit would not even recognize that. It doesn't impact it in that way. And secondly, you had a gentleman on yesterday who spoke about the number of people who don't pay taxes at all, but they don't speak to the working poor who go out there and who have to know that they aren't going to get ahead. They aren't going to be homeowners. They aren't going to live in safe neighborhoods to be able to put their kids in quality schools, but they go every day. And the minute you get ready to move forward, you want to eliminate programs that may assist those people for the greater good.
Well said, Emmanuel. Well said. It's true. And, you know, if we look at our neighbors across the water in Europe, they're not doing so well with this deficit reduction program only. I mean, the reality is that if you destroy the middle class, destroy the ability of people to go to McDonald's or to go to Target or to take the family out for a movie night or buy school clothes, those people who own these businesses lose out as well. And that's what we're doing. We're eating our own seed by focusing totally on deficit reduction. There's got to be a balanced approach. And I think you said it very, very well. You know, to your point about those hard-working people, you know, I tell you, most of the people who are poor, receive food stamps, for example, they work. 2/3 of the people receiving food stamps, Emmanuel, go to work every single day, but qualify for a food subsidy because their incomes are not, don't carry them above the poverty level. And certainly, I personally know so many people who are working 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So this notion that there are bunches of lazy Americans lying around waiting on the government to come and save them is a narrative that is absolutely false.
Wisconsin is
part of the conversation from this morning's Washington Journal. You can watch all of it online in our video library at cspan.org, talking about the bill the House will be debating today, replacing $98 billion in automatic cuts from defense and social programs with different cuts. Voting now on the previous question, Democrats urging their members to vote no so that they can offer an amendment to the rule which would allow the substitute to be considered. The Democratic substitute would entirely end the sequester. It would replace it with across-the-board cuts of $116 billion and nearly $31.5 billion in spending cuts, $85 billion in new revenue. And the new revenue would come from ending subsidies to oil and gas companies. Next vote will be the rule vote. That will be a 5-minute vote, and the rule will allow for 2 hours of general debate. We also expect the House to finish up work this afternoon on spending for 2013. They've been debating this week the bill on Commerce and Justice departments, is also funding NASA and other science programs. That'll be later today.
The yeas are 237, the nays are 270, or nays are 177, and the resolution is adopted. Previous question is adopted. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted.
Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
On that, I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
Now, this is the vote on the rule for the bill replacing the automatic cuts, the $98 billion in defense and social programs, part of the deal made last year to cut $1.2 trillion, offsetting the debt ceiling increase. We spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter for a preview of today's debate. The House on Thursday is expected to take up 2 measures aiming to avert a sequester of defense funds. We're joined by Kathleen Hunter with Bloomberg News, joining us from Capitol Hill. Remind us again what the sequester would do, and what are the goals of these 2 pieces of legislation?
Well, the sequester is a mechanism that was put in place last year in August when Congress passed legislation raising the debt ceiling. As a condition of that, they agreed to put in place some automatic cuts to programs starting in January of 2013. So what's going to happen this week in the House, as you mentioned, they're going to vote on legislation that would essentially replace the automatic across-the-board cuts with some more targeted cuts that represent what Republicans would rather see cut. It would spare defense, essentially, and put cuts into other places.
Well, both the House Democrats and Republicans last year agreed on and voted on this sequester, so why are they attempting to avert it now?
Well, part of the problem is that last year when they agreed to the sequester, they actually were hoping that the supercommittee would come up with a broader deficit reduction package that would help avert the sequester. The sequester was supposed to kind of be this knife that was hanging over Congress, trying to get them to come to a larger deficit reduction agreement. That didn't happen, so now the sequester is set to go into place, and a lot of folks think that if there is legislation that's passed to avert the sequester, that may not actually occur until after the election.
How much money are the measures going to raise, and what's going to be cut? What's being cut in order to save the defense funds?
Well, a lot of the replacement to the defense cuts that's been proposed by House Republicans, and this all kind of stems from the Paul Ryan budget that that the House of Representatives passed earlier this spring. It would take aim at things like food stamps and some different block grant programs for social services, those types of things, looking to put cuts in programs that Republicans say are either have, wasteful spending in them now or are redundant, and then use that to sort of keep the cuts to the defense programs from happening.
What are opponents likely to say in debate in the House, and are they planning to offer an alternate plan?
Well, the Democrats are pretty dead set against the Republican proposal, and they say that, you know, this is hurting some of society's poorest people, that, you know, food stamp recipients, older people, you know, putting their benefits on the chopping block isn't the right way to do deficit reduction. And so, you know, we would expect to see, you know, Democrats put up alternatives to what the House Republicans are proposing.
What are the prospects in the Senate if it passes the House?
Well, the prospects in the Senate are less than not good. Basically, the House is the only one right now that's moving ahead. The House is the only chamber right now that's moving ahead with legislation to avoid the sequester. There's been some discussion of it in the Senate by Republicans mostly, but Republicans in the Senate are in the minority and don't have power to bring things to the floor. So right now, this is basically a House-centered endeavor.
Joining us from Capitol Hill, Kathleen Hunter with Bloomberg News. Thanks for the update.
Thanks so much.
And 2 hours of general debate ahead on the sequestration replacement bill. Also today, the House should finish work on the $51 billion in spending for 2013 on the Commerce and Justice Departments, as well as NASA and other science programs.
On this vote, the yeas are 230.
Mr. Labrador. Mr. Labrador votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas.
Mr. Rothman of New Jersey. Mr. Rothman of New Jersey votes no. Mr. Franks of Arizona. Mr. Franks of Arizona votes aye. Mr. Welch. Mr. Welch votes no.
Yeas are 233, the nays are 183. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The chair will receive a message.
Speaker, a message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has passed S-2224, an act to require the President to report to Congress on issues related to Syria, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 648, I call up the bill H.R. 5652, the Sequester Replacement Reconciliation Act of 2012, to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Section 201 of the concurrent resolution on the budget for fiscal year 2013, and I ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 330, H.R. 5652, a bill to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Section 201 of the concurrent resolution on the budget for fiscal year 2013.
Pursuant to House Resolution 648, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 112-21 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be construed as read. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Ryan, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Van Hollen, will each control 1 hour. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on H.R. 5652, the Sequester Replacement Reconciliation Act.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I will yield myself 5 minutes and ask that the House be in order.
The House will come to order. Take your conversations off the floor. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind everybody for a minute as to how we got here. Why are we doing this? What's going on? When the President was requesting an increase in the debt limit last year, he wanted a blank check, just to increase the debt limit, borrowing unchecked. Then, when that wasn't going to happen, he asked for a big tax increase. That didn't occur. And what recurred out of that was the Budget Control Act. You got to cut at least $1 worth of spending for every dollar of debt limit increase that occurs. And so Congress passed the Budget Control Act with no tax increases, spending cuts. Half of it, approximately, were the caps on discretionary spending, netting about $1 trillion in savings, $917 billion to be specific. The other half, the $1.2 trillion, was the select committee. People call this a super committee. That committee failed to produce a result. And as a result of that, a sequester occurs. And the sequester, according to people on a bipartisan basis, is not good government. The sequester, according to the Secretary of Defense, the President himself, would hollow out our military when it kicks in January 2nd next year. The sequester will take non-defense discretionary spending down 8% and defense down 10%. We believe the purpose of the sequester was to replace the fact that Congress isn't governing. Well, let's have Congress govern. That's why we're doing this. And what we're doing is we're bringing a bill to the floor to cut 405% of the spending cuts that are in the sequester in the first year. A net deficit reduction of $242.8 billion to set aside the sequester on discretionary for 1 year of $78 billion. We think that's a good trade-off. More to the point, we need to get in the habit of doing reconciliation because 61% of the federal budget is off limits. It's autopilot. It's not touched. Congress doesn't deal with it. And so we should look at this part of our government that is not being dealt with. The last time we used reconciliation for its intended purpose to cut spending to reduce deficits was 2005. And so rather than just having annual discretionary spending bouts and debates, we should look at the other parts of government which is on autopilot and take a look at what we're doing. We basically are doing 5 things. We're stopping the abuse by ensuring individuals are actually eligible for the taxpayer benefits they receive. Novel idea, I know. We're eliminating government slush funds to stop bailouts. We're controlling runaway unchecked spending. We're putting restraints on government spending by bureaucracies, and we're getting rid of duplicative spending. I can go through each program, and we'll do this in this debate. But what we're simply saying is people should actually be eligible for the benefits that they receive, whether it's a tax credit, whether it's a SNAP benefit, whatever it is. And when we take a look at why we're cutting spending, we're doing this with the guise of the fact that we have a spending-driven debt crisis on the horizon. If taxes go back to where they've been for the last 40 years, which is what they're projected to do, there's no way you can fix this problem by raising taxes. We have a spending-driven debt crisis. And the debt crisis is one in which we have a tidal wave of debt coming to this country, just like Europe is experiencing. And if we don't get our spending under control and we don't get our deficits under control, the people who need government the most, the poor, the elderly, they're the ones who get hurt the first and the worst. We need to get spending and therefore deficits under control to prevent a debt crisis. That's what this does. It's a down payment. And instead of saving hundreds of billions of dollars like this bill does, we need to get into the practice of actually saving trillions of dollars, which is what our budget does, in order to prevent a debt crisis from ruining the American dream for Americans. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Van Hollen, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There's agreement here